Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys in their DC Multiverse line, we are featuring this incredible 2-pack of Batman and Spawn, based on comics by Todd McFarlane. Alright, so I purchased this recently on Amazon.com in the United States. When they first unveiled photos of this on their social media, I was pretty excited about it. Batman and Spawn are two characters that I hold very close to my heart. And I'm actually a big fan of the original Batman and Spawn comic book, which was published in 1994, written by Frank Miller and Todd McFarlane. So, I do have history with this particular story. Big fan of Spawn when he first debuted. Image Comics took the comic book industry by storm. And when you paired up legendary creator Frank Miller with Todd McFarlane, the result, it wasn't the greatest, but it left a big enough impression on me where this is still one of my favorite McFarlane books. All right, let's get to the 2-pack at hand. As you can see, we have two wonderful looking action figures. If you collect the Mortal Kombat figures by McFarlane Toys, you might be familiar with this Spawn figure. I think it's the same one that we've gotten before. I might be wrong. If I am, just correct me down below. I have so many Spawn figures in my collection. They all kind of blur together. So if there's anything different about this one as opposed to some of the ones we've received before, just correct me in the comments. The Batman, on the other hand, I want to say parts of it are new, parts of it are taken from other things. But nonetheless, I think it's a great Batman. This is a wonderful set to buy if you don't have either of these characters. Like if you've been wanting a really nice Spawn figure that captures Spawn at its evergreen look, this is the way to go. Likewise, if you want a very plain Batman, this is almost perfect. The shade of gray, though, might be too dark for you, but it looks like a fantastic figure. Batman comes with a Batarang, an extra pair of hands, and Spawn comes with this giant, broadsword cleaver deal. On the back, we have some beautiful artwork that was from the comic book. So my biggest complaint about this set is that the figure is a lot darker than what's portrayed here. The gray on Batman's costume is much lighter as opposed to the actual action figure. It's weird because this almost kind of reminds me of some of the older Kenner/Hasbro Total Justice figures from back in the day. If you're a long-time action figure collector, you might remember there was a line of, I think they were maybe 4.5 inch scale Justice League figures put out by Kenner/Hasbro. And I think they were exclusive to KB Toys. And they were always discounted, and they had a Batman that was kind of colored in this same vein. And for some reason, that kind of appeals to me, because for me, in my head, I kind of imagine that this is the older the older KB figure, kind of blown up. But back to the color discrepancy. So at first, I thought maybe Batman's costume was too dark. But then when you look at the cover, it's a much darker gray. Not that it's a perfect match, but it almost looks like it's a close approximation to what this is. But then when you go into the comic itself, here's that one image. It's a much lighter color. I'm just being nitpicky here. For many people, it might not bother them at all. But, that's just me being subjective. All right, let's take this out. Large box set. It's about the same size as all the other McFarlane DC Multiverse box sets. If you got any of the Superman 2-packs or the Booster Gold, Blue Beetle 2-pack, this is around that same size. But it's pretty heavy, though, because both figures have these, really thick capes. All right, real quick, this fell out of the box. I think it's maybe a backdrop display. And again, it includes that wonderful double-page spread that we see in the comic book of Spawn and Batman against the city skyline. This is like one of my favorite McFarlane images. I just love it. It's amazing. And on the back, alternate background. I guess if you want a much more just Spawn-themed, hellish nightmare background, you know, you could go for this. Alright, so for the insert, we have the DC Multiverse style and then the Spawn style with kind of like that green, with that green neon plasma energy that Spawn kind of like embodies. And you also have 2 trading cards. Not the greatest images, but they're not bad either. I think they're all right. You get this large, oh, okay, so that cardboard backdrop, you do get a base for that, and it's right here. It's kind of like this large mound of skulls, which is really sick. This would be great for like Mortal Kombat also, so if you happen to collect the McFarlane Mortal Kombat figures, this would be a great backdrop piece. Alright, hopefully I can get these out. Lots of plastic ties holding them down. Alright, Batman's cape is a pain in the butt. It's... we'll talk about this later. But, man, this thing is too big. Alright, let's get to the figures. Let's do Batman first, because I have a feeling more people might be interested in Batman than Spawn. The Batman figure is nice. There's a lot of cool things about it I really like. Even though the cape's excessively large, in my opinion, one thing I do like about the cape is how it has the points up towards the shoulders. This is something McFarlane added in his versions of Batman whenever he illustrated it. But also, it's kind of reminiscent of former Batman artist Norm Breyfogle, who illustrated Batman in the, I think, late 80s to maybe early 90s. His pupils, are they painted in? I can't tell. They almost look too black. His pupils might be more gray than white. Or actually, he's almost like squinting. So you just see a hint of his eyes. He has a huge jaw. Kind of a screaming expression. It's nice because it's not necessarily realistic. It's more like comic book-like. The emblem on here kind of reminds me of the Three Jokers Batman figure. Very basic utility belts, very comic book inspired. I like how his bodysuit looks like it's actually like spandex or lycra over him because you see the folds and wrinkles. He has the really exaggerated, elongated fins. One thing that's kind of rearing its ugly head is the return of the exposed ball joints on the wrists. A long time McFarlane collectors will remember that some of the earlier figures, the ball joints were always exposed and it was very unsightly. For example, here's one of the early McFarlane Batman figures, and then the ball joint is completely exposed. It looks terrible. And it's unfortunate that this figure kind of suffers from that, you know, because the past year and a half, they've really gone to great lengths to correct that. There's some discolor, or at least some disconnect with the colors on the knees, you know. There's slightly a lighter shade of gray as opposed to the upper leg and then the lower leg. But I think from a distance, you're not really going to care about that. The cape is what kind of bothers me. For one, it's excessively thick and it's really, really big. So chances are this is going to take up a lot of real estate in your display space. I've said this in many videos. For me, I really prefer it when capes aren't as dynamic and when they're more neutral and just flowing down. This looks great for like figure photography or if it's just like one figure on the shelf. But if you're displaying multiple figures, you know, this might get in the way. But then again, like I said, that's a personal preference. You know, I can imagine some people like being over the moon about something like this. But it's nice. It kind of embodies McFarlane's art style also, with the really long jagged edges and zigzags. Nice leather texture on the cape also, so it conveys a little bit more realism. But it's overall a solid Batman. Like I said, if you're looking to have this one Batman figure and one Spawn figure, you could get that done with this set. It's not the most perfect Batman, but it's a pretty solid one. So. And the articulation, his head's kind of stiff. And this is kind of like the Three Jokers Batman also, because the head and the neck are actually one piece. They're not separate pieces. There's just a deep cut at the pit of the neck where the head and neck attaches to, which allows for like a really low downward motion, which is nice. Does he look up? That's pretty decent. Unfortunately, his arms aren't going to rotate fully upward because of the cape here. It kind of collides with it. But you have the standard articulation in the biceps and in the elbows. Again, very unsightly wrists with the ball joint. Cut mid-torso, so does he crunch forward? Not so much. Does he arch back? Not so much either. But there is swivel both there and at the waist. Legs kick up. They kick out. My legs feel a little bit loose. And then, not only that, but it gets kind of gappy where his briefs are. Double pinned knees, articulated ankles, and toes. If I had to rate Batman on a numerical scale between 1 to 10, 7.5 to a low 8. It's not perfect, but there's enough here that I really like. It's a very stylized comic book version of Batman. I do like the exaggerated chin. I like his expression. I love the points on his shoulders. I kind of wish they were a little bit bigger, though. But nonetheless, it's really awesome. Beautiful looking action figure. And I do get a kick out of this shade of gray. Initially, I would have liked or preferred a lighter gray. But like I said, this kind of takes me back to like the older KB exclusive figures. So, awesome action figure. And let's get to Spawn. Now this Spawn figure really takes me back. There's stuff about this figure that reminds me of the older Spawn figures that we got in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, I think there was I want to say it might have been like an anniversary Spawn, or maybe like Spawn 50 or Spawn 100 in terms of the action figure. He came with this like display base, and he came with this long textured cape, and he was kind of like standing on the on this rock like this, if you remember that really old action figure. And this kind of takes me back to that, especially with this gnarly looking cape here. The cape here really embodies McFarlane's art style with like all these excessive folds. They're really how it's really tattered and beat up towards the bottom. You have this beautiful texture that really gives you a sense of like it's like a real fabric. Even though I'm against like flowing capes, I do like how his lapels towards the top are kind of like moving in the wind. It really captures McFarlane's art style. Like if you ever seen his like drawings of Spawn, like when Spawn's perched atop like a cathedral or a building, you know, stuff's always like flailing around in the wind, and this kind of really captures that. In terms of detail, you know, this really is the epitome of like what McFarlane Toys is all about. You know, they're very ultra realistic, hyper detailed, and it looks fantastic. If you did not pick up any of the Spawn Mortal Kombat figures, you know, this 2-pack is a great way to get a solid Spawn figure. The visual presentation of this figure alone, I think, is perfect. The only thing that might hurt it is that due to the nature of the cape, which is like Batman's, very thick, very heavy, it might limit the posability of the figure. But the articulation, you know, it is there. It's just the cape's going to restrict movement, as you can see. But, you know, all the bells and whistles are there in terms of what the articulation, and it's just a solid figure overall. It's beautiful. Yeah, this is a wonderful 2-pack. If you could get it on sale, you know, pull the trigger. If you want just a Spawn figure in your collection, this is the way to go, because I think this is really a near perfect version of Spawn, especially if you're like into like the 90s Spawn or early 2000s Spawn. And the Batman's nice as well. So this is a great 2-pack, excellent value. You know, you're getting two pretty quality action figures. You know, again, there's some stuff that bothers me, like the exposed ball joint, but if you can look past that, I think you'll be rewarded with some toys that you'll really enjoy displaying on your shelf. Alright, so with that being said, let's wrap this one up. Once again, my name is Lou. If you're new to my channel, welcome. If you are a returning viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support. I greatly appreciate it. So until the next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. Alright, later.